Talk Goalie to Me is hosted by Minnesota native Olivia King. Olivia King played 6 Division I seasons between the pipes for both the Golden Gophers and the St. Thomas Tommies. She began her goaltending career in Brainerd, Minnesota, taking her high school team to the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament twice. Today, she's molding young goaltenders, coaching at both the youth and high school level, both boys and girls, while also chatting with some of the most well-known hockey names across the country. So get comfy and listen in for today's episode of Talk Goalie to Me. Here's Olivia King.
My dad and his buddies love your interviews, and they always watch. And they asked me to ask you where the nickname K-Train comes from and who started it.
Great story. Great place to start the conversation, Olivia. So the K-Train originated from back when Darby Hendrickson was playing. Dear friend of mine, now coaching in Nashville with Andrew Burnett. There was a guy that got called up named Christopher Kalanos, both with a K. He was kind of a journeyman guy, played in the American League, but got a cup of coffee with the Wild. They were having a terrible season. I've been doing this job for 20 years. This was back in the early days, probably 15, 20 years ago. Scores a goal in a meaningless game late in the season. The Wild are hopelessly out of the playoff mix. Early scores this goal, come to the bench, sits down, looks around to all the regular guys that have been there all year, and says, guys, don't worry, we got this one today. Just ride the K-Train. I was obsessed with the story, and so I kept asking Darby to tell the story. The guy faded into oblivion. We never saw him again, and Darby and Bruno adopted me as the K-Train because of my affection for that story, and it's kind of been carried on from generation to generation. Matt Dumba kind of really pushed the whole K-Train thing, and Marcus Foligno has kept it going.
That's awesome. Yeah, they said they take bets on what the boys are going to say, like in what way they're going to thank you at the end of the interview, and they do it every single time.
I think it's so great.
Funny. They've both been texting me this morning, and they were like, you have to ask him where the story comes from. I'm serious.
It could be a drinking game because there are different players. Like some guys, look, the new guy, Quinn Hughes doesn't know the K-Train, doesn't even know who Gorgie is yet. But usually it's one or the other, right? It's either Gorgie or K-Train. Soda Stick's now doing the Thank You Gorgie shirt, which I thought was really kind of fun. And we'll see if there's ever a K-Train shirt. But I'm very flattered. I love the gig. I love the guys. And, that's a great place to start.
Goalies, welcome to the Talk Goalie to Me podcast, where we spill all the behind the mask tea with goalies, talk gear that actually works, and hear the crazy stories only goalies can tell. Big shout out to General Sports, where you can get your pads, mask, and everything in between totally dialed in. All right, let's kick things off. Today's guest is Kevin Gorg. Most people in the Minnesota hockey world know him as a voice you hear when listening to the Minnesota Wild broadcasts. But before his broadcasting career, Kevin was a state championship goalie at Burnsville High School in 1985, a Division III college goaltender at St. Thomas, and later a coach at both the high school and college levels. He's experienced the game from just about every angle, as a player, a coach, and now as a longtime broadcaster. We'll talk about his path from winning a state title to building a career in broadcasting, what it's like working in the NHL, and how being a goalie has shaped the way he sees the game today. Here's my conversation with K-Train. Welcome to the Talk Goalie to Me podcast. I'm so excited to have Kevin on our show. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be with you. I'm a fan, and I've loved getting to know you a little bit through Paul Allen, my dear friend, on his show here locally on K-Fan. And bottom line is, we've got a lot in common. Minnesota kids, goalies, and St. Thomas. Roll Toms.
Roll Tommies. Yeah, exactly. Paul's great. It's been so fun to get to know him and be
Isn't
on
he
the
great?
show. He's so great, and so nice of him to have me on as well. I love talking hockey, and especially women's hockey.
Well, he needs more. Number one, he needs more hockey. The Vikings season's now finally over. We can tuck that to bed. And I think he needs more women on the show, women broadcasters. I know Jamie Hirsch has been a part of the show. I know Audra Martin's been on. Katie Storm's been on. But to have a hockey centric guest like yourself, a goaltender. I think it'll be great for Paul's show, and I think it'll be great for the listeners.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you listening. I thought that was cool when I reached out to you and you were like, "Oh, I've heard you on PA."
Oh, I love it. I really have enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Well, speaking of, hockey and Tommy hockey and everything, I know that you played for the Tommies, but let's start a little bit earlier than that. You played for Burnsville. No big deal. You were a state champ senior year. Talk to me a little bit about your youth career and, how you got there.
Yeah, for me, I started skating when I was probably 5 or 6. And back when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, a lot of outdoor ice, a lot of time spent outdoor. Whether we were playing pickup hockey or even our organized practices. And I knew early on, Olivia, I wanted to be a goalie. I looked at the game and I loved hockey. I was obsessed from the time I was very little, and I knew that the goalie never left the ice. I'm like, these other guys keep shifting in and shifting up, but that goalie's out there the entire time. Why would I want to do something else? I want to play, and I want to be out there. And it really worked out well because I also played baseball. I was a catcher in baseball, so as the years went on, that helped me stay sharp in the off season with my hand-eye. And, I was obsessed with the state tournament from a very young age. My dad knew that I wasn't a great student, but he also knew that if I kept a straight line and stayed out of trouble, my reward would be every single year, starting in probably grade 2, he would come pick me up at school on the Thursday of the state tournament. Back then it was just one class, and Thursday was the day you caught all 4 games. And he'd take me down to the state tournament. We'd go to the afternoon games. We'd go to dinner in between with his golf pro buddies. Then we'd go to the night slate. I'd stay up way past my bedtime when I was younger. And for me, it was more important than Christmas. It was better than my birthday. It was the state tournament Thursday that I looked forward to. And I really stayed out of trouble in school so I could get that opportunity. It was kind of back then that's how parents would keep their kids in control. It was like, if you do this, you get that. And the state tournament was my big prize every year. And so between the hockey, the goaltending, and the state tournament, those were my dreams. I didn't really dream anything past that.
That's amazing. What age did you start playing goalie?
Age 7. So,
oh my gosh.
When I started out, I had one game. Back then when you were in mites, they'd give you a chance to play all positions. I had one game out. I actually scored a goal, which was really cool. Back then I was wearing number 7, which is bizarre. But then I played one game in goal, and I'm like, this is it. This is where I need to be. And right away, I had my dad start shooting tennis balls at me in the basement. And I was like, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. And nobody else wanted to be the goalie on my mite team. And so that was it. And I kept playing goalie, and the rest is history. And, I was obsessed with trying to, because again, technology was different back then, but I had a tennis ball shooting machine that Coach Osiki would lend me in the summer when school wasn't in session. And I lived just down the road from our high school coach. He's now considered one of the greatest coaches in high school history, but he'd borrow me this tennis ball shooting machine in the summer, and I would set my net up in the garage. I would set the machine out just outside the garage, so probably 20 feet away, and I'd put it on full velocity, and then it would kind of move around and shoot tennis balls at me, and I would just continue to work and work and work. And I wasn't naturally gifted per se, but when you work and you know the drill when you're a goalie, repetition was everything. And, I was lucky enough to go to some great hockey schools. Warren Strelo, who was the goalie coach on the Miracle on Ice team in 1980, ran a specific goalie school out of New Hope Arena. He was the first goaltending coach back in this would have been the early 80s, to incorporate video. We're going back a long time. And so he would videotape you at camp, and then you get a 20-minute session with Coach Strelo breaking down the video, the good, the bad, the indifferent. And it made an impact on me as a young player, and I kept going back to that goalie school, and I think back at that now and how far ahead of the curve he was in terms of technology. So, yeah, I had a lot of great breaks along the way, and then I ended up playing for a great team in the Burnsville team I played for in '85.
That's so cool. I always think about, video and stuff, because video is huge now. Everybody watches video, and I think that helps people learn way more, because a lot of people are visual learners.
I am.
Yeah, I am too. So it's just like, when you play goalie, you think you're doing one thing, and then you'll watch a video and you'll be like, never mind, I guess I wasn't. It's just like your brain like plays tricks on you. So that's really cool. Did you go to a lot of different goalie camps and goalie schools back then, or was that like your main one?
That was my main one. Ken Yackel had a hockey school, Warren Stralo's goalie school. Minnesota Hockey Schools and I had a great relationship. So Herb Brooks, the architect of the Miracle on Ice, well-known, well-documented through the movie Miracle, would do his hockey school out of Faribault, out of Shattuck. And so it was a camp where you'd stay in the dorms and you'd have 3 different sessions each day on the ice. You'd have a train, an outdoor, dryland train session, and then at night you'd watch these Gopher highlights of all his old Gopher teams from the 70s and early 80s, and that was the hockey camp. It was called Minnesota Hockey Schools. It was run by Herb Brooks. Well, my dad was the golf pro at the Faribault Golf and Country Club, which was like 8 minutes away from the campus of Shattuck St. Mary. So on a particular day, right after Miracle on Ice, he came over to the golf course, and he and my dad are both East Side St. Paul guys. That's where they grew up. They had a lot in common. And so Herbie and my dad struck up a deal where Herbie could bring the coaches from the hockey school to the golf course, and my dad would take care of them, let them play golf, let them have the carts. And then Herbie's deal was my dad got to have his son come to the camp for as long as he wanted. So I would go for weeks at a time in the summer, and Herb was my coach. Full circle moment, 1985 state tournament, finally get there, right? I've been dreaming about this since I was a little kid. We're scheduled to play the late game, which was the 9 o'clock game back then in 85, Olivia. And the game right before us, and you can look this up, it's state tournament history, Jefferson and Minnetonka went into 5 overtimes. They ended up having to halt the game because it was getting close to midnight, and you couldn't start another game after midnight, and they had to finish that game in the morning. Well, the bottom line is I'm the goalie. I'm in my gear. As you know, when you're in the next game, you get to warm up on old ice. So when the puck goes in, you're hitting the ice. So I'm in most of my gear pacing outside the locker room. Herbie's working for Channel 4, who did the state tournament, and he's at the desk down there for the intermissions, and he says, "Hey, aren't you Kenny Gorg's kid?" This is Herb Brooks. I'm like, yeah, he doesn't know who I am, even though I went to his hockey school. There's no way he knows who I am. Calls me over, and so for a couple of hours, he would sit and talk to me and like tell jokes and make me feel comfortable and get my mind off the pressure that continued to build. We didn't hit the ice till like 11:45. We got out of there at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then, the rest again, the next morning, Jefferson came back, beat Minnetonka. Of course, they scored right away. Like literally, they restart the game at 9 o'clock. By 9:05, it's over. And then again, we played that night against Jefferson. The only team that had beaten us during the regular season, beat them, ended up beating Hill Murray in the final. I'll never forget those 2 or 3 hours spent with Herbie. And, he comes across in the stories and the documentaries as being this real tough guy, which he was. He was a hard guy to play for. But away from all that, when you took that intensity out of it, and maybe he was broadcasting, and maybe because of Ken Gorg, my dad, thought he could, make me feel a little bit better and take some of that pressure off, he did it. And, I've become friends with his son, Danny, and his daughter, and I've told them the story, and it's a remarkable time in my life.
That's so cool. I've seen all the pictures of you and your team from that state championship that year, and they're so cool. It's so cool to look back and see all those memories. And one of the pictures I saw was 2 ladies, and they're holding a sign, and it says, "We love Gorgie." And I thought that was so funny. It was so cute.
Nobody called me Kevin in high school. Like literally, there were buddies I had that didn't know my first name. Everybody in school would call me Gorgie. That's just the way it was. And so it's funny when you look back, and that was 41 years ago. We had our big anniversary last year, and we did a celebration back at Burnsville. I'm still really good friends with a lot of those guys. We grew up playing together. Hockey, again, I'm old, and I embrace that because hockey was a little bit different. You weren't changing schools. You were wherever you grew up, that's where you played. And you grew up with a group of people that were your brothers. And, in that locker room, we had all the great camaraderie, that there were fights, there were, stories and jokes and poking fun. But the bottom line is we had played together through squirts, peewees, and bantams. Imagine how tight-knit we were by the time we got to high school. Now, we happen to have a ton of talent on that team, but when I look back at that, I can't remember any of the games. It's too long ago, Olivia. It's 40-plus years ago. I remember the bus rides, the pasta feeds. I remember all the time in between. The games all kind of run together, unless I have to, pop in the old, we got those VHS recordings from the tournament back in '85 that are now on a DVD. But honestly, I remember all the details, the little things of the time in between the games.
I think that's what's so cool about the tournament. I played in a few state tournaments. I don't remember the games or anything.
No, it's hard to.
No, but I remember how, the feeling of being there and how exciting it was.
The butterflies.
Exactly.
You can't get that. I tell, I'm lucky enough to speak to teams once in a while come tournament time, section playoff time. Coaches will bring me and I get to talk to these guys. It's a great honor, a great privilege. And I'll tell them, I'm like, the best part of being a hockey player is the 45 seconds right before you go on the ice for the first period, when everybody's finally got their headphones off, they've got their gear on, they got some sweat dripping down their nose, they look around, and it's dead quiet, and you've got the butterflies in your stomach, and you're looking at all your teammates, and you're like, this is it. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Whatever game it is, you can't get that in real life. And I've tried. I have done the coaching thing, the broadcasting thing. I've done it all, and it's all incredible, but you'll never get those feelings back. And I think sometimes as players, you take them for granted. So I try to remind these kids, these literally are the best moments as a hockey player you're ever going to have. And 40 years later, you're going to remember these moments and say, how lucky were we to have that?
Exactly. Yeah, I love the broadcasting now that I do it. Because it's live and it's similar. It's not the same, like you said, but it's similar. You have to be prepared. You have to be ready.
Oh, yeah.
And so I can kind of see how, your career path has led you there. You just love hockey so much, and you kind of crave that feeling. And I think it is a very similar feeling.
I still get the butterflies. And it's funny, the butterflies are different now. When you're a player, you don't want to especially when you're a goalie, as you know, Olivia, you don't want to let your teammates down. And when you're a goalie, there's really no place to hide. But as a broadcaster, I tell people the butterflies are twofold. I don't want to screw up. I want to do a good job, but I also really want the team to do well. And I know that in this business of broadcasting, you can't, quote unquote, be a fan. But I will tell you this, you can pull for a team because our jobs are incredibly more fun when the team is winning. The coaches are in a better mood. The training staff's in a better mood. The players are in a hell of a lot better mood. And I won't run from the fact that I want to see a Stanley Cup. I'm a born and bred Minnesotan. I had my heart broken twice by the North Stars in 81 and 91 when they made these cup runs, and it was incredible to be in this town and watch this town become just crazed about a hockey team. And I know that this market needs that and deserves that. So I'm not going to run from it. I am pulling for this team. When we probably play Dallas here in, what is it going to be, 6-7 weeks in the playoffs, I'll be going bananas inside. Now, outside, I can't show it because I'm broadcasting and you have to be professional. And you can't be a cheerleader while you're working. But inside, I'm going to be going nuts. I can't wait for it.
Just trying to be kind of neutral.
Try. Especially against the Dallas Stars, right? The team that used to be our team and won a cup down there. Don't tell me that those wounds have healed. For some of us, and you can ask your dad, there's no way those wounds have healed, and I can't wait to see this team, the best team I've ever covered, man. In my 20 years of doing this, I can't wait to see what they can do.
I agree. I'm really excited for playoffs and for all the boys to get back.
It's going to be great.
I'm sure they're having a blast in Milan.
Oh, I'm sure they are, but let's just keep them healthy. I know, watching the game yesterday, Eck blocked a shot, and he's leaving the ice. I'm like, oh, dear God, don't do this to me. And so even today, when we get done later this afternoon, I'm going to watch the U.S. and the Sweden team play. And, the silver lining is one of those teams gets to go home early. No offense. Get them home healthy. And, I'm cheering for the U.S., obviously. I love the red, white, and blue. But if Sweden wins, then they'll be my team. Bottom line is Canada's going to be tough to beat. They've been amazing in this tournament. But now it starts for real. And I just have a theory in my mind that the U.S. has kind of been playing with their food, kind of messing around. They didn't really – I don't want to say they didn't respect their opponents, but they didn't have their A game in any of the prelim games. They just looked a little off, if we're all being honest. I think that Sweden will have their attention. I think Sweden coming into the tournament was the third betting favorite in the market. I think these guys respect Sweden. I think you're going to see a different version of the U.S. today. I think they're going to beat them. I think they end up playing Canada, and I think it's going to be like it was last year in the Four Nations. Incredible hockey. And I know people are all flustered about hockey at 7 o'clock in the morning here in the cornfields. But like the Open Championship in golf, once a year or once every 4 years, I can handle my breakfast watching a gold medal game and seeing the best players in the world go toe-to-toe.
Yeah. When else are you going to be able to do that?
Right? Never.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, different.
Yeah, people have been asking me that too. They're like, who do you think is going to win the gold medal? I'm like, the U.S. And then they're like, for men's.
Yeah, we know the women are going to win. They've been rock stars this whole tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who scores that many goals in
So tell me about Abby Murphy. I'm going to turn it around on you as the host here. What makes her so unbelievable? I mean, she had that goal that went viral on social media, which I still can't even believe she pulled that off. But you practiced against her on a regular basis. What is it about her game?
Murph is unlike any other women's hockey player I've ever met or played with or played against, because I played against her at St. Thomas.
That's right.
So I think that's like the funniest thing. Like, people ask me about Murph all the time because they're so curious. And they're like, how is she off the ice? How is she off the ice? I'm like, she's one of my best friends. I love her more than anything. She's one of the most loyal people I've ever met. And on the ice, she's the same way about her team. She's very loyal, and she will stick up for what she believes is right. And she also is just super smart. Like, she's just so hockey smart. Like, hockey's her game. It's just like football players. Like, if you think of, there's a lot of football players who I think maybe in the classroom don't bring their A game and don't apply themselves, but on the field you're astounded by their playbook and how much they know, because football is such a game of plays and like how much you know, and if you're in it, and like you can tell if you've been studying your playbook. And Murph, like, makes her own playbook. Like, she writes it. And I think that's the coolest thing. She watches so much hockey.
Really?
That she's just so ahead of the curve. I think, like, she watches hockey and then she goes and practices that move or that thing. So she's that much ahead of everybody else. And that's what I really like about Murph, is she's just so smart.
Yeah.
And she's, like, mentally smart. She plays a different game.
And I love the edge she plays with, too. There's an edge to her game. So she isn't just, some superstars that play the offensive game only have that skill set, but she can play so much grit and go and muck it up in the corners and go to the front of the net. Like, she's got all the tools, man. She's fun to watch.
She's so fun to watch. That's what I tell people. I was like, she has a crazy swag that nobody else has.
I agree. I think she's been their best player. And there's been a lot of great contributors to Team USA on the women's side, and Taylor Heisey, one of them. I adore her. But I would say Murph has had the most impact on this tournament, and I think she's the X factor in the gold medal game as well, because, to me, U.S. has looked a little quicker and a little younger, and I think she's a part of that next wave for the red, white, and blue. And even though Canada's been dominant here for decades on the women's side, it feels like it's turning, and she's a big part of that.
Yeah, I agree. She just brings a different energy. And people don't like it, which I love about Murph. Like,
That's cool.
When she steps on the ice, everybody's like, oh. It's funny on, like, international play, even if she's not, like, she's not being as super physical. She's, like, drawing penalties, and she's, because of her, history. People are like, I don't like her.
Oh, no, she has that personality.
And so I think that's cool. Like, I think she's helped a lot in this Olympics because of that. Just her reputation. People are like, I don't like her.
Eck's the same way. If you watch the Wild on a regular basis, Jule Eriksson Ek draws a ton of penalties because he's hated by everybody. And this goes across the board. Eastern Conference, Western Conference, in the division, out of the division, it doesn't matter. When you play with that swagger and with that edge and you're hard-nosed and you play every single shift to the end, like with everything you got, you're going to drive your opponents crazy. And being hated is a badge of honor, and she's got that.
Exactly. So that's my take on Murph.
Love it.
She's the bomb.
I turned it around on you. You handled that well there. Way to go. Way to go,
Thank you. Well, taking it back to when you guys won the state championship game, and then you went on to play juniors. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Great experience for me. As you know, when you play the position, you're kind of at the mercy of what you see on a nightly basis. Well, the team I played at in Burnsville was the number one team in the state. We gave up 15, 20 shots a night. I was a decent goalie, but I didn't really ever get tested. Completely opposite script when I got to Des Moines and played in the USHL for the Buccaneers. Last place team, averaged giving up 52 shots a night, which was great for my development. Wasn't a lot of fun to lose, but being that is a league where you're trying to build your skill set, I finally got to a place where I had to be busy the entire night, and I'm better that way. For whatever reason, in life, on the ice, I'm better when I'm busy, and it was a great year of growth for me. So Ohio State had talked to me after the state tournament. They were thrilled I was going to play in Des Moines. They came and talked to me after my first year of juniors, and even though my stats weren't great, they're like, we see the development. We're going to offer you a partial scholarship. We want you to be a Buckeye, but we need you to play one more year of junior hockey. And as I mentioned earlier, I was never a naturally gifted student. I had to work for my grades. I ended up, B- average, nothing to brag about, but I got through it. And so my dad and I were in the process of looking at schools, and we went over to St. Thomas. You've been there. You know what I'm talking about. But I stepped foot on that campus, and I fell in love. And I knew that I could play Division III hockey. I knew at Ohio State I'd always be one of two or three guys. And being a D1 guy would have been really cool, but it was a huge school. And I thought, small classroom, D3 hockey, this was the right place for me. And I have no regrets. Like, it was an awesome experience at St. Thomas. The hockey was way better than I ever realized. And then the experience and the academics, and clearly being that I didn't really get into sports broadcasting till later in my career, started as a teacher and a coach, that education has really been a backbone of the things I've done now it's been, 35 years since I left St. Thomas.
That is so cool. I loved St. Thomas. I had the same experience. I went and I visited, and I was like, no way this has been here the whole time.
I know.
This place
that's what I
is
said.
So nice.
Got the river right there.
Yes.
You got Summit Avenue. It was just a place where I felt comfortable, right? When you walk over there, it's a beautiful campus. It was just a place where I felt at home. And I think when you're looking to pick a college, I tell kids all the time, like, you have to go visit. You have to interact with fellow students, and you got to feel like, is this a good fit for me? Everybody has different needs. Some people love the big school environment. I needed a smaller school environment, and I think I made the right choice.
Yeah, I love that. I saw you at one of the Tommy games this year. And
New rink. Oof.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice.
Wow.
Would you call yourself an avid Tommy fan still?
I follow as close as I can. In my line of work, being out of town as much as we are, being that we play every weekend, I don't get to attend a lot of games, but I get to keep up. And with social media, it isn't hard to do. So I follow both those teams, know both those coaches. They're excellent human beings. They're outstanding at their craft. And, on the men's side where I play, I look at this team and I'm like, they have a legitimate chance to make the NCAA tournament. They're in that 13, 14, 15 spot right now. Top 16 make the tournament. If there aren't a bunch of upsets come playoff time, even if they don't win their conference tournament, which is going to be super competitive, they have a shot. They're playing Augustana this weekend. It's a huge series for the Tommies. And then I had a chance to go back over and drop the puck for the first women's game in Anderson Arena. I got to do the lineup card in the locker room. I had such a blast doing that. When you spend 10 years coaching at a place, and I was lucky enough to be the women's coach there from 98 to 07, there's always going to be that connection, Olivia. I'm always going to feel a part of that experience. And to see both those programs flourishing now as an alma mater, as a former player and coach at St. Thomas, it gives me a ton of pride. It really does.
I think that's so cool. I also love that you coached women's hockey, and I feel like people don't really know that about you either, that you coached for so long.
10 years.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of your life.
It is.
A good career in coaching, and you're known for your broadcasting, for your work with the Wild and stuff. So, talk to me more about those 10 years and why you chose to coach women's hockey.
So I was a boys' high school coach at both Burnsville and Moundsview for 5 years, and I mentioned Tom Osiecki's name. Huge influence on my life. Father figure, coach, the whole thing. I'd always told Coach Osiecki that I wanted to get into coaching when I was a student, and then I actually went and did it. And then I told him, if I could ever coach with you, It would be a dream that I would love to fulfill. And so at the time, he was helping out with the Wisconsin Badgers. And St. Thomas was going from club hockey to now starting a program they called Tom Osiki. And so Tom Osiki took the job as the first women's coach at St. Thomas. Nobody knows this. And he called over to St. Thomas and said, I want Kevin Gorg to be my main assistant, and hopefully he'll coach with me for X amount of years and he'll take over. St. Thomas was like, cool, he's a guy we're familiar with. He was a grad assistant here. He played here, blah, blah, blah. Well, Coach Osiki got a big promotion in Wisconsin. They found out he was leaving. They bumped him up, and they kept him. So now Coach Osiki calls me and says, I'm really sorry. I got to do this thing with the Badgers. And so now I'm kind of like, well, I left Moundsview. I'm no longer a boys high school coach. So I call St. Thomas, and they're like, come on in. We'll do the interview process. We'll see what happens. And I'm like, okay. And so I got the job. Bottom line is the interview process went great. I got the job. And I'll never forget it. It's 1998. Girls hockey was really just kind of starting to really catch fire here in the Twin Cities and beyond. And I get in there, and I've got a group of players that some played basketball in high school. Some weren't, really natural hockey players, but I had these 20 kids, and it's day one of the program. And my assistant coach was Tom Pelkowski, who ended up being the head coach when I left. We're dear friends, and we get out there the first day of practice, and we're teaching them how to literally make passes, tape to tape, and not fall down. I'm not kidding. But what I'll tell you is this, Olivia, in the time that we spent together coaching those ladies, number one, they treated us like gold. They were so eager to learn and get better. We got our doors blown off early. We got beat by St. Cloud State, went to UMD and got beat by 12. Because back then there weren't as many Division III programs. You had to play, D1, D3, didn't matter. You had to play your 25 games. But in those first couple years, the growth the program saw, how much better they got, we were like, this is incredible. Because you go from coaching high school hockey, where high school boys, I'm sorry, they think they know it all already. Even at age 16, 17, and 18, they're not going to give you a ton of feedback. And if you give them some coaching, you're not going to see dramatic improvement, where these college women were just sponges. And so we ended up being just in love with the job. And I was the big recruiting guy. Tom was the X and O guy. And the program just took off, and we ended up being really good. We had this rivalry with Gustavus, who was an established program. Mike Carroll, longtime coach, they would win a national championship at some point there. It was great for us, and that 10 years went by in a blink. And then it came down to, I'd been doing some state tournaments. I'd been working at Canterbury on the media side. Broadcasting was always where I thought I probably would end up. And in 2006, I got a call from LaPanta, our play-by-play guy, who I had done high school hockey with for years. And he's like, hey, we got an opening on our Wild Live shows. We'd love to have you come in as an analyst. We know you're coaching. We'll work around your schedule. And so I worked kind of a part-time schedule that first year. And after that, they came to me and said, listen, we really think you're good. We have a full-time spot available, but you need to leave coaching. And so we're at a crossroads. And I love the broadcasting, but, man, I love the coaching. And we had built this program up. And so it was a really, really hard decision. But in my heart of hearts, I knew this was where I needed to be. And I made the choice, and I just kind of just went with it. And here we are, 20 years later. And, again, no regrets. I missed the coaching. That day I dropped the puck for the first women's game in Anderson Arena. I reconnected with about 15 or 20 of my former players, brought back all the good feels of the memories. But I was supposed to be where I am. I was born to be a broadcaster. I feel most comfortable with the mic at the rink, working a Wild game. It's home to me. And so I don't have any, I should have done this, could have done that. I've been very, very blessed. And let's be totally honest. As I turn 59 later this week, I don't want to say I'm a dinosaur, but I don't want to say I'm not. Because if you look at all professional leagues, including the NHL, most of the people in that position are a lot younger and aren't men. And so I feel very privileged to have cultivated this job and this spot. And I'm going to hang on as long as I think I can do a good job, and then we'll pass the baton and we'll move forward.
I was just thinking that yesterday. I was like, it is so cool. And I think it also is because we're in the state of hockey.
I do too. I think Minnesota makes a difference. Because
I think that the people here, they see you, they know you, they trust you, and they like to hear from you. because of that, And so I think that is really cool. Like, you get to hold a position that, is different. And I think that's because we are in Minnesota.
I think Minnesota makes a huge difference. I get asked this all the time. And, it's funny. We travel around all these different NHL venues. You end up being, friends with other sideline reporters. You trade information. Because if you're playing New Jersey and the young lady that does the Devils work is a Minnesota kid.
She's awesome.
She's great, by the way.
She's awesome. She played at St. Cloud State.
She's a terrific human, Rachel Herzog. Mm-hmm. And so you trade info like, hey, this guy's dealing with this guy's dealing with that. We just shuffled the lines because, she's myopic into New Jersey Devil stuff. I'm on the same side, on the Wild side, so we kind of help each other. So that night during the game, we've got just this broad base of knowledge of both sides of the event. But I look at them, and they've all got these fancy tablets, and they've got all this, the colors and the scribbles, and then I've got these placards, right? I'm known for my placards, and I write all my stuff out by hand. It helps me remember the stuff, and it's just old school the way I always did it. And so, I look at that sometimes and I giggle.
Do you think that's because you didn't necessarily go to school for it? You just do things your own way because you kind of taught yourself?
For sure. When I was in high school, we didn't have computers. I took a typewriting class, right? That was as digital as things got. I tell my daughters all the time, and I mentioned to you before we started recording, that you're kind of right in the middle of my three, Katarina 30, Maddie 28, Annika 22. You'd fit right in as one of the Gorg girls. And they keep me young, but they also remind me that I grew up in a completely different era. And so we didn't have cell phones when I was a kid. We went down to the outdoor rink, and like I mentioned, we played a ton of, whether it was boot hockey or pickup hockey, we were just out there. That's what we did. When we got our first video game, it was a game called Pong in the early to mid 80s. And you guys would look at that right now and literally laugh. Like you would be incredibly sad for us that was the best we had. I look at the games now, and I look at I love golf video games, hockey video games. I'm blown away. I can't have them in my house because I won't get anything done. But I'm like, God, I wish I had that when I was a kid. I don't wish that I had cell phones when I was younger. I'm glad that I grew up in an era where we didn't, because I probably would have spent way too much time on them. When I'm not doing a podcast with you and focused on this, I love looking at X or Twitter. I love watching horse racing on my horse racing app. I love watching Olympic highlights. I get kind of down the rabbit hole, so to speak. So as a kid, that would have been a problem.
Yeah, doom scrolling.
Yes.
That's what they call it.
I try not to do it as much as I can, but I end up, and that's why I'm a movie guy. I end up for the movie, for that 2 hours, I put my phone away. I don't talk. I'm a very talkative guy like you. I've got the gift of gab, so to speak. And people are fascinated, like my work traveling crew. When we go to the movies, they're like, you didn't say a word. I'm like, no, I'm in the movie theater.
I'm focused.
This is my mental vacation for 2 hours. I can just sit here, eat my popcorn, and watch this movie. That's why I come here. Everything shuts down, including my phone. So it's good for me.
That's funny. That's how I am, too. I quote movies constantly. And it's movies that people never think I would quote. It's like Nacho Libre.
Oh, good.
And movies like that.
That's flaky.
And people are like, what are you talking about? When you really watch a movie and you can see all the clues.
I love it so much.
I love it. I think it's really cool.
I'm obsessed with mystery movies, thrillers, psychological thrillers where you don't know what's going to happen next. Love sports movies, of course. But I love a good rom-com, like Notting Hill, old school. This is way before your time. You're too young to appreciate it. But Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant, it's the epitome of what a rom-com should be. We talked about Anyone But You, Glenn Powell, Sydney Sweeney. More recent, obviously, for the younger people listening or watching. Phenomenal rom-com. I really, for me, as long as it's not all sci-fi and all special effects, if it's a real movie, I'm all in.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way. Except I do like Star Wars.
Me too.
That's the only one.
The only exception I'll make. It's funny you say that because I grew up with it. The first Star Wars came out in the late 70s, and now it's amazing that still, almost 50 years later, it's still just as big a deal.
Yeah, those ones are good.
They are.
Have you seen Wuthering Heights yet?
I did.
Did you like it? Wait, oh my gosh, this is huge because none of my friends have seen it yet, but I went and saw it.
You saw it?
Yeah, I saw it. I have no one to talk to about it. So
okay, here's what I'll say about the movie, and I liked it. I didn't love it. It was a little dark in places for me. Her dad that was a tough watch for me. Just being honest. She's fantastic, by the way.
She's fantastic, though.
Everything she's in, she's fantastic.
Like, she did so good. Oh, my gosh. I thought it was a little weird, which I expected, but I liked it. I mean, I didn't love it, but I did like it. It has me wondering. Like, I want to watch it again because I want to know what I missed. But the dad freaked me out.
He was tough to watch. It's worth seeing for sure. The best movie out right now is a movie called Crime 101. They both came out the same weekend.
Oh.
Wuthering Heights, Crime 101, both came out last weekend. I was lucky enough to get to a sneak preview of Crime 101. Halle Berry, Mark Ruffalo plays the detective, one of the Hempstead boys, handsome devil. He's the like the jewel thief. It's got a Thomas Crown Affair feel to it, which was a movie in the late 90s that was super popular. Great movie. Good drama, ups and downs. Halle Berry hasn't been in a movie for years. She was so good in this movie. But yeah, the best thing out right now is a documentary on the 1980 Miracle on Ice. That's the best thing. People always ask me because, I'll get back from break here, and you end up, like I mentioned, the training staff, the medical staff that work with the Wild, they know I'm the movie guy. What's the best thing you saw during the break? And for me, it's that documentary. I've watched it 3 times. I cried 3 times the first time I watched it. Like, it's emotional. It's so just incredibly good.
Are you like a AMC person? Do you have like the pass?
No, I go to my home theater is the Plymouth 15 theater right off of 55, and I do have the Man Theater card thing. And the best gift I got for Christmas, my brother-in-law Scott gave me this bucket. You could during Christmas only, the week of Christmas, they sold this $4 plastic bucket. I'm sorry, you paid $25 for it at Christmas, and then every time you go to the movies, you get your popcorn for $4. And the cool thing is, it's a big plastic bucket, right? And I usually I'm a solo guy to the movies more often than not. So I'll eat about half, and then I'll bring the other half home, put it in one of those little Glad bags, and I'll have popcorn for it home. It's awesome, and I love the Man Theater. They got the big leather recliners. You're back there. You're like half asleep. People bring blankets. I don't bring blankets, but a lot of people that go to that theater bring blankets. Where did you see Wuthering Heights?
I saw it at the Edina AMC.
Oh, at the Southdale Mall. Yeah,
it was okay.
Nice. Yeah, it's decent.
Right.
Yeah,
but I really wanted to see the movie. So, and I'm an avid like go by yourself movie person because somebody told me a few years ago. One of my goalie coaches, he was like, "You need to do a few things alone, like before you die. It's like go to the movies, go do this, go do that." And so I was like, So I did it once. I was like, I have to go.
It's fun to go by yourself.
Wait, I kind of like this.
Well, again, when you go to dinner, you're there to socialize and talk with your friends, or if you're on a date, whatever. But movies, you don't talk. So you don't need somebody else there. I go way more by myself. I'm happy to go if my daughters want to go. If somebody wants to go, I'd love to go. But more often than not, I'm going during the day. Like, I work at night, so I'm a daytime movie guy. If we have an off day on the road, I'm at the movie theater. All my coworkers know this. They make fun of me. They're all going to the bar. I'm going to the movie theater. That's what I do.
Are you close with your coworkers?
I am. Yeah, I just talked to Joe O'Donnell yesterday. I miss him, man. Like, it's no different than a locker room. Like the traveling media group, from the radio side to the TV side. We've got LaPanta, Carter, Staylock, West Walls, that whole crew. We break bread together, right? We're in the mess hall at these arenas. We go to dinners together. We're at practice every day together. You stop doing that for a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's weird. The void, especially in the middle of February, the void you have in your life. And so, yeah, we're going to reconnect at practice here this weekend into next week. A week from right now, we're going to be in Colorado to play the Avalanche on a Thursday next week. Then we play Utah on that Friday. And we get back to the cadence of the season, which we all miss.
So do you always travel?
Well, 99% of the time. There's a weird trip this year coming up in March where the Wild will play on a Tuesday in Tampa and a Thursday in Florida, and both games got picked up by national TV. So then we are going to fly commercial and meet the team in Boston. I would say 99%, like almost every trip we're on, if it's a weird trip like that where national TV picks up multiple games, then we're not going to be there for the first part of the trip. But we're on the road all the time with these guys, and I love it. Like, they stay in great hotels, which is cool, but just the cadence of being around the guys, having a conversation. For my line of work, being able to kind of bring the viewers kind of behind the scenes just a little bit. You have to build up that trust and that respect with the players and coaches. But if they feel comfortable enough to tell you certain stories and you check with them and it's okay with them, you can bring that into the broadcast. So I think it's great to have that as part of my arsenal when I get to a broadcast, because anyone can read off stats. They want to know a little bit about what makes these guys tick. Friendships, whether it's players they're playing against, teammates, Olympic memories, whatever it might be, that'll enhance the broadcast, and that's kind of my job.
Yeah, that was my question for you. How do you kind of draw that line between what you feel like you can share when you talk to the boys and what you feel like you can't? You just ask? If
it's something that's, I don't want to say controversial or private, like a family matter, you ask for sure. And if it's just hockey related, where like once in a while, let's just say I'm talking with Gustafsson or Volstad about their gear, they know if they tell me, I'm likely going to run with it, and they're cool with it. And so when Jesper changed the way he held his stick, and I'm going to tell you, as a former goalie, he was holding his stick 2 or 3 inches above the paddle. And I'm like, dude, I've never seen this. And it's funny because in camp, Stalock and I were watching, and we're both like, this is really strange. And he was getting beat 5-hole. So then as the season progressed and we had already had the conversation, he circled back with me and said, Gorgie, I'm now moving my hand back down all the way flush with the paddle like you guys did. I'm like, what changed? And he's like, well, I did a big video session with Freddie Shabbat, our goaltending coach, and we think that'll help me prevent pucks from getting under my stick or getting through on my 5-hole.
All right, let's take a quick TV timeout here. If you're a goalie, you already know finding the right gear is half the battle. That's where General Sports comes in. They've got the best goalie setup in the Midwest: pads, masks, sticks, skates, everything built for the ones crazy enough to stand in front of 90 miles per hour slap shots. The real game changer, their Goalie Lab, where you can book a one-on-one fitting with a goalie specialist like me to make sure your setup actually fits the way you play. It doesn't matter if you're just getting started or chasing championships, General Sports makes sure you're dialed in. So before you order something online that might fit, go check out General Sports, because every save starts with the right setup, and General Sports makes sure you've got it. All right, back to the episode.
And that was on the front end of that incredible 10-game stretch he had, where I think he was player of the week. He was one of the 3 stars of the month. Like, he had that crazy 8-0-2 run, and that was Freddie Shabbat and him watching video, making an adjustment. And so, yes, I had multiple times in a broadcast where I brought that up and gave the viewers something to look at, because the average viewer sitting in a Barker lounger that didn't play the position you and I played isn't going to know anything about holding a goalie stick. But anyone that's played the position knows you get that blocker, it's flush up on that stick, and you can really control that paddle. And if you move your hand even up a couple inches, it's just a little more flimsy. And so I was fascinated, and I think the viewers were like, oh, okay, that's something I can watch. And so they're cool with stuff like that. Anything with the gear, the skates, that's not going to give the opponents an edge, we get to run with that stuff.
I heard you talking about that, and I was like, there's no way that he holds a stick like that.
He did. It was for months. And I'm like, what is this guy? Like, you don't want to question the first-round draft pick who's a world-class talent. I mean, I'm D3 guy. I got nothing to say. I got no legs or goalie pads to stand on. But I'm watching with Alex Stalock, who actually played in that same crease. And I'm like, what's going on here? We were both like, just, wow, crazy. So, and he's a tall guy, right? So it was interesting how Freddie Shabbat and Wally kind of worked together to readjust. And it's part of those subtle, little stories behind the scenes that I am obsessed with. And so we get back to practice, and I know Monday I've got a big day at the rink. I've got a sit down with a couple of the guys. It'll be great to kind of reconnect and talk to Faber and Boldy specifically about what it was like in Italy and being a part of the Olympic Village, because I've never been an Olympian, and a lot of our viewers have never been an Olympian. I want to hear some of those stories, and hopefully we can incorporate those into some of the shows when we get back to it.
I think that's so cool that you get to connect with so many different people.
Me too.
Like, of course, it's amazing that they're Olympians, that they're awesome athletes. But at this point, like, when you build that relationship with them, like, do you think of those guys as your friends?
I do. Like, when in the summertime, they'll text me up, and they know I work with PA out of Canterbury. They want to bring a group out there. I'll hook them up. And, when the whole friends thing, like, listen, there's there's always that healthy distance. I don't get in their business. And I definitely draw a line at some point. But no, absolutely. And I remember going to a Kenny Chesney show at U.S. Bank 3 or 4 years ago, and we were sitting a row away from Brock Faber and some of the guys, and we were having a great time. And they were hammered. And that's okay. Like, they were having a ball. And we both shared that passion for that great country music. Kenny Chesney, such a good live show. But, you draw a line for sure. There still has to be professionalism. And, I'm not going to the movies with these guys or hanging out with them. But, some of the coaches that have been behind the bench, like Bruce Boudreau used to be a guy that would go to the movies with me, and that was cool. Like, listen, when the lights come on, there's a line that you have to have, and they have to have that trust and that respect. But no, I mean, I've known these guys since they started, and I remember showing in training camp, I had to sit down with Brodeen, and I had this picture, you scroll on your phone, and it took me forever to find it, but the 2011 draft was at Xcel Energy Center back in the day, and I was working it, and I got to interview Brodeen, and we both looked so much younger. I actually had some hair. It was crazy. And I showed it, and he could not stop laughing. Like, he looked like a 12-year-old kid. But, I have the memory of being there when Brodeen got drafted. I have the memory of being there when Jared Spurgeon got called up in a game at Calgary late in the season, and I looked at one of my broadcast partners, Dan Terhar, and said, there's like this stick boy that's coming to the practice this morning. Is this like a Make-A-Wish thing? And it was Jared Spurgeon. He looked like, he still looks young. Look at Jared Spurgeon. Imagine how he looked 15 years ago. And so I'm like, that stick boy, Terhar's on the ice. And boy, did I look like a fool when he played that night and was awesome. And he's never looked back. So, I have all these memories of being there for all these moments. Matt Boldy's first game, even though it was nationally televised, he scored a goal in Boston, hometown kid. And I got to interview him the next day and sit down and feel the emotion of that event with him. Yeah, it's something I don't take for granted. And I look, whenever it's done, whenever the broadcast career comes to an end, I look back at the places I've been and the people I've got to work with. And if you would have told 7-year-old Kevin Gorg that this was all going to happen, I don't think I would have believed you. I would have thought you were like teasing me, because it would have been like right out of my dreams. And not many people get to say that, and so I never, ever, ever take it for granted.
Before you got to the level, you're at now, what were you doing? Did you do a lot of high school games? Is that what got you into it?
Yeah, it's funny. It was a handful of years ago. LaPanta and I were walking to practice in Montreal. Big game, morning skate, Bell Center, downtown Montreal, hockey mecca, right? And we're walking together to the rink, and he's not much of a talker, so I usually carry the conversation because I'm a nervous talker. And I said, LaPanta, I said, when we started doing this, in the early 90s, and we were doing local cable hockey, I said, there was a time where my parents knew I was broadcasting with you, and they asked me when they could watch our show. And I would look at them and say, we're not on live. We're on this cable access channel, but if you set your VCR, we're going to be on at 3 o'clock this morning, the Hill Murray White Bear game, and you can watch us. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think we'd be walking in the streets of Montreal, you'd be one of 32 play-by-play guys in the world that work in the National Hockey League, and I'd be one of the sideline reporters? Imagine how far we've come. And he chuckled because it was so beyond our wildest dreams. But what we had was a love of the game, and we wanted to be broadcasters. And so we would work for literally nothing calling high school games, and that would eventually, somehow, some way, lead to where we are now. And without LaPanta, I never get that foot in the door in 2006. And he's a handful, right? Like, LaPanta he's our Ron Burgundy. But the bottom line is that chemistry we had, the work we did doing high school games for, well over a decade, led me to a position where I got to go in there in 2006 and have an opportunity to work Wild live. And that 2006, partial schedule that it was, morphed into this full-time job where now, year 20, working with this team. And I just, it reminds, I think, young people out there now, like you, that are, whether they're fresh out of high school or fresh out of college, getting started in this business, you never know, right? The connections you make in all walks of life, but specifically sports and broadcasting and really hockey, you never know how those connections are going to really come full circle when you're older. And so cherish the time you have doing whatever you're doing. I got a lot of people, Zach Halverson over at the Fan, working high school games all over the place, busting their butts. You just don't know where it could turn out.
Exactly. I think that is awesome. And it's so cool that, especially, now it's playoff season for high school hockey. We've got the girls state tournament this weekend, boys state tournament in a few weeks. And, you're still heavily involved with the state tournament, which is awesome and super cool. Do you think that you doing the state tournament kind of keeps you involved with high school sports as well?
It does. Last year I got to work the entire tournament. The Wild were gracious enough to give me a game off in Vancouver. This year I got 2 Wild games, so I can't take 2 off. I'm working the Wednesday of the state tournament. I'm lucky enough to work for Channel 45, and I'll be doing all 4 games as the analyst in the booth. It's going to be spectacular fun. Can't wait to see Jim Erickson and that whole crew. And I'll always have that special connection to the tournament because of my childhood and be a part of that in 85. I mean, if you grow up in this state, I don't care if you're up in Brainerd like you, down in Faribault where my dad was the pro, or in Burnsville here in the metro area, the state tournament will always have that magic, right? When you walk in that building, you'll be there coaching later tonight. There's something just that you can't even explain sometimes, that the tingles you get, the feelings you get when you walk in that building. You smell the donuts, you smell the popcorn, you hear the marching bands, the electricity in the atmosphere, walking around downtown St. Paul. Everybody's got their leather jackets on or their hockey jerseys on. They'll always have, that weekend will always be extraordinary to me. And so I'm so glad that I still get just a little taste of it as a broadcaster because I love going back and seeing it. I really do.
Mm-hmm. It's so cool to be around the kids because a lot of kids, don't play hockey after high school.
This is it.
This is it for them. This is their biggest stage. And so I think it's really cool that the state of Minnesota does put on such a big production for them because they deserve it, and it's something you remember for the rest of your life.
You'll never forget it. And I think a majority of these kids, this is really it. And so to have that time together with your buddies, with your friends, the people you grew up playing with, you put that sweater on together in the locker room. I don't know, man. It's I get very nostalgic this time of year. I love the state tournament. I love and if you're a Minnesotan too, and you get to this time of the year, end of Feb, early March, you're kind of past the dog days of winter, right? January just drags on. It feels like forever. You're now at, for me, the best time of the year. State tournaments, college hockey coming down to the tail end, playoff starting, NCAA tournament, NHL, playoff positions, in, out, matchups, all that, and then the Stanley Cup playoffs, right into spring, Masters weekend in Minnesota is kind of a signal of we get to go outside and put our shorts on again, and then the Kentucky Derby, and then the Stanley Cup, and it's just like, So, yeah, springtime in Minnesota, chef's kiss.
I know. It was so warm this past weekend, too.
We got a little tease there. Don't be fooled. We know better. There's going to be a big storm in March. There always is.
Fake spring.
Mm-hmm.
You talked to me a little about the horse racing in Canterbury.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about your work with them?
Another labor of love. Love the ponies, love the horse racing. I'd never seen a horse race, Olivia. 1985, my senior year at Burnsville, Canterbury at the time was Downs. Opens up. So that summer, my buddies, everybody seems to be going to Canterbury. It's the lead story on the news. It's the cover of the newspaper. Like, what is this horse racing? We go out there. I don't know, 4 or 5 of us hop in the car, hockey players, go out there. We bring our $20, $30. We had no money, right? And we're betting $2. But I don't care if it's $2. When we had that ticket in our hand with, let's say it was the 7-horse, your heart just goes racing for that minute and a half or 2 minutes when the bell goes and the horses start running. And I was hooked. I'm like, oh, my God, I love this so much. And so I started kind of following the game. Back then the newspapers were a lot different. You could really, dig in to horse racing in the 80s. It was still the sport of kings. And so I really played regularly, watched regularly, ended up winning a couple of contests in the 90s at Canterbury. In the year 2000, the TV position opened up. And for me at the time, I'm a coach, so my summers are off. I'm like, I want to do this. So I went out there and interviewed for the job. The interview was basically grab a microphone. This guy came out there with a camera, and we did a fake, paddock preview of a pretend race that I had in my placard. And I yacked for about 3 or 4 minutes about this pretend race. I made my picks, and I left. A week goes by and I get the phone call. They're like, you're hired. Well, this is going to be great. Who do I meet first? Paul Allen. How do you not love Paul Allen, right? I mean, this guy was the voice of the Vikings. Like, this was a big deal. And it just took off from there. I've been out there ever since. So I've got, 25 years, year 26 coming up this summer. For me, I love both seasons. Like, hockey is buttoned up. You're traveling more. You've got your suit and your sport coat on. It's very professional, and there's some pressure around it. Summertime is a little more chill. I'm in my dress pants, but I've got my Tommy Bahama top on, sunglasses. I'm outside. I'm with the horses. I'm interviewing the trainers and the jockeys. It's more of a chill. So there's two distinct seasons, and they're my two passions. Like, outside of movies and my daughters, obviously, hockey and horse racing, that's it, top of the list. So, again, I say this when I talk to classes all the time. I found my passion, and I was lucky enough to find a career where I got to work in an area where I am in love with what I do. Like, I look forward to going to work, and that isn't BS. Like, I love going to the rink or going to the track.
Do you think that started from the first game you ever did? Like, what made you fall in love when you were teaching, you were coaching? What was the first point in your life that you said, this is what I want to do?
I think for me, it all ties back to the state tournament, because the tournament is, from a playing perspective, the crescendo of your career. From a coaching perspective, it's the top of the mountain. But then the broadcast that was around that state tournament, I think also stoked that part of my passion as well, because I was the guy that broadcast the street hockey games in our driveway. I drove Tom Osiki bananas in their driveway, broadcasting all the games we used to play. If we were playing baseball or football, I was not only playing, I was broadcasting the game. I would do the pretend interviews after. That was who I was, and I think it all comes back to that state tournament. And I just think, for me, the excitement you get watching any particular game, I wanted to be a part of that excitement. I knew I couldn't play anymore. Coaching was great, but to me, the broadcasting filled all those voids. Like, still get the butterflies like a player, still feel the pressure like a coach, and then when the broadcast goes well and the team wins and you're on the ice and you're interviewing the number one star, you're interviewing the players outside the locker room, and you can hear the music playing behind you, that celebration in the locker room that only a hockey player could appreciate. It takes you back to a happy place in your life, and I love that feeling, and I get it, more often than not watching this team play the way they're going. And for me, it's just something that just feels natural.
Mm-hmm. And you actually have your own podcast, Wooden Sticks.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Of course.
A little cross-pollination.
Yes, duh. So did you start that just out of, your love for connecting with people?
Mm-hmm. I like to, when you interview somebody, whether it's a short interview at the rink like we do with the players, or you and I sitting down today, I love that connection you feel. Like, you and I are always going to be buds. Like, we were goalies. We played at St. Thomas. This has been just like sitting on my couch at home, just chilling. So it's been great. And I want to bring that out in my podcast as well. And for Wooden Sticks, it's all the stories from days gone by. My first guest was the Godfather himself, Lou Nanny. Nobody can tell a story like Uncle Louie. And connecting with many of my heroes, Jimmy Jetland, Gopher goaltender. I coached his daughter Katie at St. Thomas. One of my idols, one of my mentors growing up, got to interview him. Steve Janisak from the Olympic 1980 team. He was the backup goalie to Jim Craig. Those connections are priceless. And to spend 45 minutes, talking to somebody, learning their journey. Everybody's journey is different, right? Today, Ben Wilson's going to be on my show, going to record this afternoon. Played back for the Broad Street Bullies, the Philadelphia Flyers in the late 70s, early 80s. Ended up playing for the Chicago Blackhawks. And back then, the big rivalry with the North Stars was incredible. So I like to, not only connect, but to hear, how different their path was compared to my path. You had a different journey than I had. You were an outdoorswoman. You were hunting, fishing, and then playing goalie. I was an indoorsman. I was watching hockey, and then I played hockey, and then I would watch some more hockey. Then I'd go play hockey. Everybody's journey is different, and I love to hear those stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have one last question for you. Do you think the Minnesota Wild are going to win the Stanley Cup this year?
That's a loaded question. I absolutely think they're good enough. I do. And if you would ask me this the last 4 or 5 years, I would have said, no, not quite. This team is, on paper, good enough to do it. Now, the trick is going to be getting through Dallas and getting through Colorado. My theory is this. That second-round series, let's just say it plays out the way it most likely does on paper. Colorado is the 1. Wild and Dallas are 2 and 3. I don't care who gets home ice. It won't matter. Whoever wins that second series with Colorado in either Minnesota or Dallas, in my eyes, is going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I really do believe that. I would bet money on that. As good as Tampa's been here lately, as good as the Eastern Conference can be, and the Panthers are always laying in the weeds, I get that. The winner of that second-round series, Colorado against Minnesota or Colorado against Dallas, that will be your Stanley Cup winner. And here's why I think the Wild have a chance. On paper, Colorado's better. I think we can all see the numbers and say, yeah, they're a little bit better than the Wild. But Minnesota has had this monkey on their back for over a decade. It's the first-round playoff bid. If they are able to go out there, and I think they will, beat Dallas, the confidence they'll have from that playoff win, I think they are a team that is built to give Colorado fits. Brodin has to be healthy. Eck has to be healthy. And now we have Quinn Hughes. I look at the way this team has changed and the way they have evolved since Quinn Hughes got here in December. They can play multiple styles of hockey. They can run and gun with Colorado now. They legitimately can do that. They can play a physical game and grind it down. And then to me, it'll come down to the two Woods in Denver. Wedgwood and Blackwood are both, I think, good, solid NHL goalies. When they're on their A game, I think both Wallstedt and Gustafsson can be better. To me, that's the one X factor where I'm like, if you're going to beat that team, whoever it's going to be, they've got to have goaltending because Colorado's going to likely outshoot you and outplay you. How do you beat them? Well, you out-goaltend them. Both our guys are capable. Will they do that? I don't know. But I think the winner of that series wins the cup, and I want Minnesota to be in that series. We have always been able to elevate our game. The Wild have elevated their game when they've been facing off against the best in this league, and now they've got this X factor in Quinn Hughes. I don't know. I got a good feeling. I do think this group is going to get it done. If you ask me, is it going to be this year? That's tough. Like this year, everything seems to be pointing to Colorado. I can't deny that. But this group right now, as they're built, this core right now, they are going to get it done. I think in the next couple years, we're going to be out there in June in our cargo shorts, having a parade, West 7th. Like, I really, truly believe this is going to happen, and I can't wait.
I'm excited for that day. I love to hear your insights into everything. It's so awesome that, you get to be around it.
I live it. I mean, it's
exactly.
every day, right? Like, I live it, and I'd be lying to you if I didn't, it's one of the things I think about when I go to bed. Like, how cool would it be to see this town win a cup? Like, Florida, Tampa Bay, Carolina, like, really? This is Minnesota, man. Like, legitimately, everybody in this state has a connection to the game. We didn't all play it. We weren't all great at it. But everybody in this state, north, south, and everywhere in between, like, there's a connection to the game of hockey. How the hell do we not have a Stanley Cup? Like, we're long overdue. And if there is a hockey god, and I think the hockey gods are smiling down, sooner or later we're going to get to live through that fun. And maybe this group's the group to finally push us over the edge. I believe it. I mean, we got some unbelievable talent on this team. And it's the last thing I'll say is think about where you've been as a Wild fan. I know you're only 25 years old, but from the time you were 7 or 8 or 9, you can remember the Wild, right, as they were equipped. If we had one superstar, we were lucky. Marion Gabrick might have been that guy, right? We have 3 guys right now. 3 guys. And I'm not even mentioning Brock Faber, who's an absolute stud. But Boldy, Kaprizov, and Quinn Hughes. We have 3 guys. You could sit out there and talk to guys and gals that played the game all their life, and they're all going to tell you a different one. That's our best player. No, that's our best player. You got Eck as maybe your most valuable. You got Faber. You got these goalies. But you got those 3 guys. And every one of them could be considered the best player on this team. They're all 3 superstars. So to me, that's where Stanley Cups end up going. Teams with star power. We finally have it. Let's make it happen.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Everybody check out his podcast.
Nice. Wooden
And-
Sticks.
Yes, sir. And listen in on his broadcasts. I love that you bring your goalie insight. That's my favorite. So I
You're a
appreciate
goalie.
you.
You get it. Most important and most, I think, athletic position in all of sports. So we have to bang on that door a lot.
Well, thank you.
Olivia, it's been a pleasure.